Howdy. Welcome to What's a Koala Do? I'm Kay. Long ago, I was a visual artist. I liked doodling and figure drawing, and recently, I decided, why don't I try digital art? Join me on my journey as I make all of the mistakes, and hopefully I can share some of the lessons learned. So here we are again, you in your pajamas, me in my underwear, as mandated by our new social contracts. Uh, I'm not really in my underwear, as far as you know. So here I am starting out the basic forms of the head. Place a few markers so I know where eyes, nose, and mouth should be. Always start with the non-sphere. I like to pray to the non-sphere god at least several times at the beginning of every video. I decided to take a slightly different approach on this portrait. In that very early on, I want to just block out basic shapes with a layer of flat paint. On my previous drawing, I did this much later in the process and just sketched over the background color. I tested this out to see if maybe it gives me a better sense of the head, keeping things in the right zone. I think it did. As with my previous portrait, I'm targeting the main features of the face and a little bit more detail than maybe I need to this early, but rather than just a cute little button nose, I'm actually trying to plot the shape. I want to get the width of the nostrils in here, the width of the eyes, the general shape of the eyes, the eyebrows, general shape of the mouth. I will say already, the process is going much faster. My first few attempts at portraits were excruciatingly slow, and I was still learning the tools. So it took a long time to accomplish very little, and I didn't really intend to record those and post them up on the channel. With Christopher Reeve, that was about not quite 7 hours of work. I think this piece I'm already getting right into details. I don't know. I think this one came out ahead by maybe an hour total, and almost all of that hour is at the beginning, where maybe from lessons learned, I was able to get the majority of the general features of the face down on the screen, and then get to a second stage of detail very quickly thereafter. So this portrait is a tribute to Robin Williams. My reference photo is from Dead Poets Society. I wanted to capture a moment that is bittersweet. He is being pushed out of the school, and it pains him a great deal. But on his way out, several of the students that he truly reached in an act of defiance decide to let him know what he means to them. So on one hand, he is sad that it has to end, but he is so very proud of his students for what they're becoming. So there's a mixture of pain. And you might already see just in the, well, especially right now, I'm making adjustments to the eyes. Just the shape of the eyes, the furrowing of the eyebrows, that there's a little bit of pain trapped in the features of this face. That is not by accident. So, I mean, right now I'm just jumping right into eyes. And I suppose the reason I did this is I wanted to make sure I could capture the essence of Robin Williams. For me personally, his features are a little unusual. They don't exactly conform to the normal, the generic standards for how to draw a quick face. You know, if you try to follow the instructions that you'll find online here on how to split the face up quickly, his features don't quite line up with those. They're similar, of course. But his features aren't completely normal. And that's beautiful. It's one of the reasons why I want to capture his portrait. But also Robin Williams has meant a lot to me in my life. I grew up watching so many of his movies. He was an awesome actor. Robin, watching you work your craft has made me a better person. Love you, man. You will be missed. So you see the furrowing of the eyebrows, the brow between, and obviously the angle of the eyes. Really trying to focus on capturing heartache. And yet, the outside edge of his bottom eyelids are going to capture a hint of a smile, the hint of a smirk. His cheeks are ever so slightly bunched up. Just barely a hint of a smirk there as well. He's in pain. But he's also seeing something beautiful unfold. You know, as I get older, I find that bittersweet moments are my favorite moments. The ones that hurt just a little bit. But they're also just so darn beautiful. Real life has pain in it. But the pain comes from loving things so much. So, yeah, early on, we're already capturing a little bit of Robin Williams in this. Like before, I went into a lot of detail kind of early. But also, like before, we'll find that I'll get specific features somewhat accurate. Right now, I think the eyes are capturing Robin Williams the best. His nose is okay. His mouth is okay. They're approaching what was in the scene. But kind of like with Christopher Reeve, the placement of those features are a tiny bit off. So what I need to work on is in those early stages when you're blocking out the circle of the skull. those very first lines that I cut through the center of the skull, they're kind of lining up the tilt of the head one way or the other. That's what I need to work on the most. I am not quite nailing that accurately. I will be tilting either just a little too much or just not quite enough. And then as I'm looking at the reference photo, since that is off, I'm getting a little bit of especially the eyes will be misaligned. And early on, it's very hard to notice because I'm getting into such high detail in the eyes and I'm zoomed in on the eyes or just tunnel vision. It's like, that's starting to look like Robin Williams. I think I got it. And then it's not till much later, and maybe even I need to walk away from the piece and come back to it, and I look at it and go, yeah, there's something off. I've got to figure out what's off. And that's okay. That's going to happen. That may happen for the rest of the foreseeable future of me drawing portraits. That there's just some point where I've got to make adjustments. We'll see. You do something often enough, it becomes easier and easier. Heck, the progress on this is already much faster than on Reeve. So, alrighty. So I'll find that I have to realign the eyes. I will battle with the eyes throughout the entirety of the piece. Literally through hour 6, I'm still tweaking the eyes. Get them the right size in the right place. Get the angles, the contours on the outside, just the right angles. And I could be so close to capturing the essence of Robin Williams in the scene. Make a few adjustments that make the eye more realistic, and yet it moved away from the accuracy of Robin Williams. So then I've got to adjust it again to get it back on track. Back and forth, back and forth. I went ahead and decided to add some highlights in here because there are some very key highlights in this scene. They use what's called a rim light in this scene, where they have a very strong light kind of behind him, in this case off to the right. And it puts a hard edge on his right side of his face. And it really informs the shape of his head. So right now the features are maybe a little exaggerated because I'm using such a dark shade for the shadow and almost the brightest white for the highlights. But that's okay, these are early stages. I end up getting the basic form of the head done in about an hour and a half. All the features, mostly black and white sketch, in just an hour and a half. And then I spend the next 4.5 hours adding layer upon layer of skin tone and shading, making it softer and softer, getting the contours more accurate. I just kept revisiting the piece in 10, 15, 20-minute segments, maybe even a couple 5-minute quickies, and just constantly tweaking it until we reach the end result that I will reveal soon. I'm sorry that I didn't get a time elapse of the entire process. I'm still getting used to this. I'm getting used to making sure that I record every time. And then so often I get to a stage like we see here. I get to this level of detail, and then I need to walk away from the piece. And it might be worth noting, because maybe this is a good approach for some of y'all out there that are still picking up these skills. Sometimes you need to walk away and you come back and see it with slightly fresh eyes and go, I see what I should change. I see what's off, right? So this is starting to look like Robin Williams. It also kind of looks like a mix of some other people. Names are not coming to mind right now, but what I have done is I've captured several snapshots during the process. So I can compare them phase by phase, and I can go over the details and explain my thought process. And maybe that will make it a little bit more transparent for y'all. So this is where we left off, right? From like seconds ago. And let's see, if I go ahead and hide that, you'll see the very next step. That looks way more like Robin Williams. At least it does to me. Let me just toggle back and forth. You'll see a lot of the features are the same, but I moved them. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier. His features are not typical. He has a larger forehead. His face is a little lower. I had to correct the angle, like I was saying earlier. When you first draw that circle, those first few cross-cut lines really need to be accurate. You really need to capture that angle correctly, or else you're going to go down a dark path. And yeah, you'll see the eyes here are on the wrong diagonal line. I needed to make them more diagonal to more accurately match the scene. But really, his whole face should have been tilted a little bit more. His eyes here. See, his nose, his lips, his chin have all been altered. And I didn't actually rotate the piece, which would have been a lot easier now that in retrospect. But I actually went through and moved individual pieces and then made sketch or hatch line corrections. We're working in very generic terms of shading right now. I'm just trying to capture the shape of the shadows to help give contour to his face, to give a little bit of the sense of 3D of his cheeks, his lips, his actual jawline, and then also his forehead, make it kind of come out a little bit more, not just be a giant flat surface. But so yeah, this change here, just adjusting those diagonal lines, putting a little bit more slant on it, and then moving the individual parts of the face into place. You'll see a similar thing happened with Christopher Reeve in that I gave him too long of a nose. So anyways, so this is phase 2. And then I jump to phase 3, where I give him the correct color of his eyes. Or it's a little exaggerated, but he's got blue eyes with, I guess, at least in the scene, it looked like the slightest tint of green. So I went ahead and added something to hint at that. Another key piece is I've added a whole nother layer of shading in several places. I've started on the ears quite a bit. But something I really want to talk about here is the eye. Let's zoom in here. Woo! Not that much. So his left, our right, this eye more accurately portrays what I want to capture. It looks, I suppose, more realistic. Its proportions seem more realistic. This eye over here, his right eye, the pupil, the iris, it's all way too big. You see, it's not matching the size of the other eye. Poor guy took some damage, it looks like. I don't know. He's got some Crazy defect there. My bad. So when we switch to the other one, you'll see I finally made that correction. I compared the eyes several times, got the eye matching the same size. His beautiful blues. Another thing you might notice is maybe some of y'all will look at the eyes and go, well, why does this eye have so little white and this eye doesn't appear to have the same angle? And that's because, well, this is the outside of the eyeball and this is the inside of the eyeball, and your eyelids do not frame the eye perfectly in the center. Or at least in Robin Williams' case, the way the flesh of his eyelids sit on his eyeball is, they enclose the eye a little bit more on the outside. So when both eyes are looking at the same focal point, you're going to see a little bit more white on the inside of this eye because the eyelids really enclose the eye on the outside more. So that's why if you zoom out, you can tell he's looking at something. He's not cross-eyed. He's not wall-eyed. His eyes are focused correctly. It turns out in this scene, they're focused on, his students standing on their desks. Oh, Captain, my Captain. So, all right, then we move to the next phase. And here, I've added the clothing. And I'd never really worked on clothing like this before, so it was a wonderful experiment. I wanted to capture the kind of a soft felt fuzziness of his coat. It's like wool or something like that. And yet the crisp hardness of his collar, because it's been starched and it's not as fuzzy of a material. And I wanted those to stand out next to each other, and I think it worked out. I'm very happy with the texture of the clothing here, and I don't really touch up on it too much afterwards. As far as his face, we have gone over with multiple layers of shading. We've added a lot of skin tone. And I've adjusted his eyes, his nose, his cheekbones a lot more. So this version of Robin Williams, which still looks like Robin Williams, is a little bit more of a match of an older Robin. I use multiple references. This initial reference here is from Dead Poets Society, but also just had some candid shots, some paparazzi shots of him where he's older. And I think the additional reference photos came out more in the earlier rendition of Robin. He looks a little bit older. His skin is thinner. He's lost some weight. So in his younger years here, when he was in Dead Poet Society, he had a lot more meat on his face, so to speak. That's the technical term. They're both still Robin, but at slightly different stages of his life. That's him when he's older. This is him actually closer to when he was in Dead Poet Society. So we still have very rough strokes on the face, very broad stroke hatch marks. And also his jaw is a little too defined here. We need to soften it up and make it look more like real skin. Missing several areas of detail, like above the eyelids, the nose, a little bit of the cheek, the top surfaces of the cheeks. And then also his neck needs a little work. It looks like he's growing in a bunch of white, fuzzy, like a 1 or 2 day beard. or maybe even a 30-minute beard for Robin Williams. He was quite the hairy guy. But that's not intended. This is just me trying to capture the right shading and really rough marks. So finally, we get to our final stage. And let's see here. Yeah. So I have gone over the shading many times with much finer hatch marks. We've captured some of his, the tint of his shaven hair on his face. Like I said before, he's a very hairy guy. So even when he shaves, just the existence of completely shorn skin still has a gray tint to it. And so I want to capture that. I fine-tuned the pigment of his skin a little bit more. We softened the neck up more, so now it looks like hatch shading more than a scraggly beard. We softened the jaw quite a bit, which helps indicate, like I said earlier, he had just a little bit more fat under the skin. The forehead has been altered a little bit, get a little bit more roundness. The ears, more detail. The nose, I put spots in the nose, the imperfections of the skin, beautiful imperfections. A scar on his cheek, scar on the lip. The subtleties of the tinting of his lip, worked on that. And then also, those eyes. As I added more layers of detail, I found that I was slowly drifting away from that bittersweet pain captured in his eyes. So I really doubled down on that. Added some red to his eyes, added more shading. The subtleties of the curvature of his eyelid here. He has a very specific angle here in the eyelid and there. And I tweaked that until it really matched the scene. And I think I captured what I wanted there. That beautiful pain. His eyebrows actually indicate more the actual direction of the hairs in his eyebrows. And then finally, highlight in his hair, capturing that rim lighting to really make him pop off the background. And capture the feel of individual hairs on his head without actually drawing all the individual hairs. So that's a nice little trick there is you block in all the hair with your main color. You add a few hints like some brown in here. That might have been artistic license to hint at the fact that he's got brown hair, not black. But then you just want to catch the highlights here where the rim lighting would be striking the individual hairs. And then that's where it gets the feeling of fluffy, poofy hair with individual strands. Anyways, so this is where we are. This is the final rendition of Robin Williams. Y'all have a great day.